Hello, I'm John Veltheim and I'm the founder of the BodyTalk system. And on this video I'm going to be talking about BodyTalk Access. Now, just a little bit of history here. The BodyTalk system has been around for quite a long time now. I started teaching my first classes in the mid-90s, and it has expanded and grown into a very major part of the healthcare system, specializing in state-of-the-art scientifically based energy medicine. And as a result, it's expanded into many different fields, and we have BodyTalk practitioners who are medical doctors and specialists, chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, and even lay people. However, there was one thing missing from it, and that thing that was missing was something that has always been very near and dear to me. I've been involved in healthcare all my life, and the one thing I had always wanted and always looked at was this whole business of personal responsibility. I was brought up in a sort of a situation of aunts and uncles who were all farmers, and they were basically self-reliant. They grew not only their cows and they made their milk and everything, but they had their veggie crops and their herb gardens and things like that. And if someone got sick, there was always some formula, some herb they could use to make people better. So the case was they rarely went to a doctor unless it was something pretty serious, you know, the horse jumped on them or something like that. And I know my own mother used to use a lot of those home remedies on me. Mind you, some of them were absolutely ghastly. Her favourite, of course, being castor oil. And if you have to take castor oil, you won't get sick. It's a good deterrent, I guess. But the key element, though, is I believe that in our society we have become far too reliant on a medical system that has become more and more complex, harder and harder to understand. And we also went through many decades where we put the medical profession on a pedestal, and it was like the doctor was God, and we didn't dare question him, and we did whatever they said and took whatever they said because we believed that they would know best. And of course history has told us that a lot of mistakes have been made, a lot of drugs have been given out that had a lot of bad side effects, and that's still happening. And of course, what has also happened is a lot of over-servicing, where we're getting so much done. So you can sort of go to the hospital with a head cold and end up with $2,000 of bills of doing MRIs and X-rays and God knows what to make sure you don't have a blocked sinus or a tumor or something. And in a wealthy country, they've sort of got away with it to a large extent, but that is changing, and it's something that we need to do something about. And it's something I've always felt we need to do something about, not just from the economics point of view and from the safety point of view, but from the personal responsibility of people realizing that they should look after themselves better, that prevention is better than cure, and that so many things can be avoided if you address the simple things at an early stage and use simple therapies, non-invasive therapies that can help you through a minor problem and stop it from ever becoming a major problem. So a couple of years ago, I started working on some of the key techniques in the BodyTalk system, ones that have been there for a long time, that had developed a really big reputation for their dramatic impact as standalone techniques. And I put them together as a little package that I called BodyTalk Access, and it involves around 6 techniques. And these techniques are very simple, they're easy to learn, and they're non-invasive. And the concept of them, that if you do them as a formula, and to do the whole formula can take maybe 8 minutes, probably 10 or 15 when you first start doing it and you've first learned it, but once you've learned it and been doing it for a few weeks, you can get it down to a much shorter time. And when you do it, you cover a broad spectrum of complaints that when addressed properly, or dysfunctional parts or happenings in the body, that when addressed can bring about profound changes in the health, not only on a preventative medicine basis, but also in the treatment of a wide variety of conditions. Now I'm going to go through this in a little bit more detail with you, but the concept of the BodyTalk Access is that we are now teaching this to people throughout the world. We're teaching it to people within a family, within a community, within a village. And by teaching members of a community and certain people within a village, what we're finding is those members can use this technique safely and very effectively on members of the village for a wide variety of illnesses when they come up. And in fact, what we're finding over the last couple of years, that on average we would say that this simple set of techniques is taking care of anything up to 60% of the types of problems that come up on a week-to-week basis within any family or community. Now, when you think about it, this is huge, because it means that you can effectively, dramatically cut the healthcare costs of that community and of that family. Now, it's not going to cut it by 60%, because very often the things we're treating are things that aren't all that costly to treat even with traditional medicine. And the most expensive stuff is heart surgery and things like that. It's still going to take up the bulk of costs, but at the same time, the cost saving is significant. Not only that, the time saving. I remember this striking home to me in a very powerful way. I've traveled all around the world, and I don't know how many countries, maybe 70 countries, and in third world countries there's a certain expectation. You go through India and South America and Africa like I have, and certainly we see the enormous need for it in the isolated communities and villages where they really don't have medical care. The BodyTalk Access techniques can make a profound difference in learning disorders, reading disorders, attention deficit disorders and behavioral issues with children and of course adults. But while I was there, I was talking to a young woman who was a widow, and she had 2 young children. She was an African American lady who had a part-time job. She was in one of those jobs where they wouldn't hire her full-time, they'd only hire part-time. That way they didn't have to pay her sick pay or holiday benefits and all that type of thing, which is unfortunately fairly typical in the certain areas and economies within the American system. And she had a real issue, because if young Timmy, her son, got ill, say he woke up with a bad fever, she had to make a major decision, because it was a case of, do I take him to a clinic? She knew that if she took him to a clinic, she had to take a day off. Now that meant she didn't get paid that day, because she didn't get sick pay. That also meant, literally, that her family had to go without food for that day, maybe even 2 days, because they lived on such a tight budget. And she also knew that when she went to that clinic, her minimum wait would be around 8 hours, her average wait about 12 hours. She'd get there at 8 o'clock in the morning and finally get treated something like 7 or 8 at night. And her first treatment, when little Timmy was there, he'd only get to see a nurse. And the nurse routinely would give him 3 aspirin and give the mother a few more aspirin and say, look, have him take these tomorrow. If he still has a fever in a few days, you can bring him back and we'll let him see a doctor. Now, in the meantime, a whole day was wasted to find this out and to have this type of treatment. You know, this really is a sad story. Even sadder when it's taking place in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And the reality is, in America, which is a great country, but there are at least 40 million people in that type of situation where they have to choose often between healthcare and food, and healthcare, livelihood, and so on. We're actually training people to be self-sufficient to a large extent. In other words, to be able to take responsibility for their own well-being and to do something proactive about it and make a big difference in their lives. So the whole idea is that we're also teaching this within families. So we get 1 or 2 members of the family who do the course, and then they can address the issues. So if someone wakes up feeling ill, they can do the technique. It takes them 8 minutes. And once the technique is done, they'll know the results, because the patient, that person, is going to be better by the next day. If they're not, and if they're worse, then they know they've got to go to a doctor because it's a more serious condition. But you know, there's a beautiful window there, because a lot of people would wait a day before they go to the doctor anyway. And it's the beauty of Access. If it is going to work, it works quickly. You're not waiting for a long time. You really do see results often within a few hours, but certainly within a 24-hour period. Now, when we think, okay, this is a very powerful system, but here's one of the great advantages of it. is that you can learn the entire system in just one day. In fact, in 6 hours. And we teach it either as a one-day program or we teach it as a 2-evening program. And so that just in 6 hours, with the help of a manual, we have a lovely, well-illustrated color manual that goes with it, and for a very small cost. In most cases, in major countries, we might charge $100 to $150 for the training. That's US dollars. But when you think about it, for that $150, you're getting free medical care for the rest of your life for so many different illnesses that you can use not only for yourself, but for your friends and family.